But we'll see. Well, after the Parsons Green tube bombing, the UK threat level was raised to the highest level of critical, meaning an attack may be imminent. This is the 5th terror attack in the UK this year. So does the UK government need to be doing more to protect us from attack? Would you like perhaps to see the police being armed? I certainly would. Call me on 0345 6060973. Or perhaps you think the authorities have got too many powers already, in which case text 84850 and you can tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. Any opinion you like. Watch me live on Facebook. It's Sunday morning and we're live in London next.
On FM, online, on your mobile and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 10 o'clock, a second man has been arrested by detectives investigating Friday's terrorist attack on a tube train at Parsons Green Station. The 21-year-old was detained in Hounslow in West London late last night. It follows the arrest of an 18-year-old in Dover and a police raid on a house in Sunbury-on-Thames in Surrey. The property belongs to a couple awarded MBEs for fostering hundreds of children, including refugees. Neil Basu is the Senior National Coordinator for Counter-Terrorism Policing.
Officers continue to trawl through many hours of closed-circuit television footage, and more than 180 videos and pictures have been sent to us by the public. We continue to take a large number of calls from the public through the confidential anti-terrorist hotline.
There'll be extra security at Chelsea's Premier League match against Arsenal this lunchtime. Their Stamford Bridge ground is less than a mile from Parsons Green. The Blues head coach Antonio Conte says it's important they carry on as normal.
A lot of time it's very difficult to understand why. But I think that we have to continue to show that we are stronger than them.
Passengers on a British Airways flight to Heathrow have been led off a plane in Paris for additional security checks. The airline says it was as a precaution. It happened at Charles de Gaulle Airport. The plane took off 3 hours late. A degree could cost £5,000 less under reported plans for university fees in England. The Chancellor is thought to be considering a cap of £7,500 a year instead of the current level of just over £9,000. Former Education Minister Lord Andrew Adonis has told LBC he'd like to see them even lower.
And what I think is clearly now happening for political reasons is that the Chancellor and the Prime Minister are looking at cutting the fees from the government side. And, of course, that will leave the universities in a very bad position because they'll get no compensating funding for that at all.
A stretch of the northbound M5 is still closed in South Gloucestershire while police investigate a crash which left 4 people dead. A lorry went through the central reservation and hit oncoming traffic yesterday. A woman and 2 children are fighting for their lives in hospital. Figures show more than a quarter of secondary schools in England don't offer religious education, despite laws saying they must. The National Association for RE Teachers says 28% of state schools didn't have the lessons available in 2015. LBC weather, any fog will clear to leave a day of sunshine and locally heavy thundery showers, highs of 16 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Andy Ivy.
Searching for the perfect paint colour? The search is over. At B&Q, 5-litre Valspar V700 wall and ceiling paint is down to just £35, saving £10. And our in-store paint pros can mix it to match any colour. Hurry, offer ends Monday. So for great deals this weekend, come to B&Q. Offer starts Friday 15th of September. In-store only.
LBC Travel, as you've been hearing in the news, in South Gloucestershire, the northbound M5 remains closed between junction 16 and junction 14 for Thornbury. That's because of a serious accident, and the carriageway is likely to remain closed for most of the day for investigation work. In London, Romford Road in Stratford is blocked in both directions. That's because of an accident. It's causing queues there. And in Camberwell, Denmark Hill is blocked southbound because of a police investigation. That's causing delays to Camberwell Green. Onto public transport, the Hammersmith and City Line and Circle Line have no service running between Edgware Road and Hammersmith for engineering works. Great Western Railway have a bus replacement service running between Reigate and Gatwick Airport, and Northern have a bus replacement service running between Manchester Piccadilly and Manchester United Football Ground, affecting those travelling to the stadium this afternoon. LBC Travel, I'm Emily Rose.
This is LBC from Global. Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Good morning, everybody. Well, this is the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'm here every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. You now get 5 days of Farage on LBC. Don't forget, I'm still here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 7 till 8, where you can have your say on the top stories of the day. But the Sunday edition is, yes, it's to look at the top stories of the day, but also to go perhaps more in depth as to what's happened in the last week, and crucially, to look ahead to what's coming up in the week or the weeks to come. And I am asking people on this show from every single conceivable political background. I'm here to demonstrate that dialogue can remain open even if you disagree with someone's point of view. So it's not going to be gladiatorial. I'll get guests on because I want to find out what they really think. But crucially, of course, and remember, there are on Sunday mornings a mass of television and radio programmes doing current affairs and politics. And on those programmes, you will get journalists talking about politicians and politicians talking about politicians, and most of all, journalists talking about journalists. And only on LBC do the public get a chance to have their say. And that's the big difference. That's what LBC is all about. You can have your say. And within reason, you pretty much say whatever you like. Now, we got the news early on Friday morning about Parsons Green Tube, a bomb that didn't quite go off but flashed. It happened on an overground section of the line, not deep down inside a tunnel or at a station. I have to say, I think London had a very lucky escape on Friday. It could have been very much worse. Since then, we learnt that an 18-year-old who was attempting to leave the country at Dover has been arrested. He was being fostered by an elderly couple in Sunbury-on-Thames, professional foster carers, people who in fact have even been given MBEs for their services to children. Goodness knows how they're feeling this morning. And the news this morning has broken that another 21-year-old has been arrested in nearby Hounslow. All we know about the 18-year-old is that he was a refugee, an asylum seeker who'd been taken in to this country. The whole sorry saga of this year, and perhaps it's just worth reminding ourselves that there have now been 5 terrorist incidents that have taken place this year. 4 of them have taken place in London. And I don't know what you think, but I'm asking myself, does the UK government need to be doing more to protect us from attack? And I'd like your views on that. You can call me on 0345 60 60 973, and you can text me on 84850. You can tweet on @LBC using the hashtag Farage and LBC, and of course you can watch us live on Facebook and comment there too. But before I give any opinion of my own about this continuing and in some ways quite depressing and very worrying saga, I want to have a sort of proper expert opinion on where we are in terms of tackling this modern scourge. And joining me this morning, I'm very pleased to say, is Chris Phillips, former head of the National Counter-Terrorism and Security Office and a former Detective Chief Inspector of the Metropolitan Police. Chris, thank you for coming in on this Sunday morning.
You're welcome, Nigel. Good morning.
Well, it's happened again. The 5th terror attack we've seen so far this year. Do the police, do our security services have the resources necessary to deal with this kind of thing? Or is it just impossible to stop these attacks from happening?
Impossible is probably not the right word, but it's extremely difficult, and it's going to get more and more difficult as the threat evolves and changes over the years. At the same time, police resources and the resources that are available to deal with the problem have decreased. Whatever the government tells you about counter-terrorism, looking after the counter-terrorism role within police.
They keep telling us that whilst overall police numbers have declined since 2010, and I think in England and Wales we've gone from 140,000 officers to 120,000 officers, but they keep telling us that more money is being put in to, whether it's MI5 or branches of the police. We're being reassured that more's being spent on counter-terrorism. Are you questioning that?
Questioning it. I know it's not true. I mean, quite plainly, you can actually deploy people from other investigations, from general policing into counter-terrorism for particular roles. Interestingly, when we heard after this latest attack that police numbers have been increased onto the streets. No, there's no increase. What's happened is the officers are there already, are being stretched and pulled away from other parts of their work. So I think we have to understand that policing is more than just investigation. It's about picking up intelligence. It's about what goes on behind the scenes. It's about, from my days back in policing communities, it's about communities understanding the police understanding communities and coming forward and being willing to report people. So there's a lot more to it than just having a response to a terrorist attack.
And we've heard this week, pretty much for the first time, that we're going to start deploying the military on our streets in order to give the police a bit more time and a bit more space. Is that a good move in your view?
Well, yes. I mean, because there's not enough firearms officers available to the police and the government at the moment, then their only choice is to bring people in to fill the static posts that the police would have done, so that those police officers can be released out into the street. I mean, that's just policing on the cheap, to be quite honest, and it's not the way to go forward. Of course, you may need a surge in police at some stage, and that's quite understandable. But to actually have this as your only plan, and then you also understand that officers aren't choosing to become firearms officers because they don't feel as though they're being protected, and those firearms officers and terrorism officers that are there already are leaving because they're so unhappy with their lot.
Yeah, I mean, the figure is about 7,000. About 7,000 of our police in England and Wales, are firearms trained, carry firearms and are prepared to use them. It's a figure that, if I was to mention this in France or America, people they simply can't believe it, because they're routinely, of course, police officers are armed. Now, Chris, I ever since the London Bridge attack, I have been discussing this on LBC and asking listeners what they think. It seems to me that when a police officer confronts 3 terrorists on London Bridge, very bravely, using his baton, and for his troubles gets stabbed a couple of times, lucky to survive, it seems to me that had that police officer been armed, now it could be a gun, but equally it could have been a taser, he actually could have stopped them going in to Borough Market and committing that atrocity. So would you agree with me that it's time we trained and armed our police service? Well,
it's fair to say that throughout my career I've been very anti police officers generally carrying firearms. In fact, I used to carry a firearm for a little while, and I've never thought in the past that it's been necessary. However, because of circumstances are changing, but more importantly because of the lack of police officers available on the streets, I think we may have to move in this direction. And let me put this to you. It's okay, we're talking about London, we're talking about the areas that have the most police officers anywhere in the country available to respond. If this attack had happened in Dorset or in Devon and Cornwall, and a single officer had turned up knowing that he wasn't going to get any backup for 15, 20, 30 minutes, maybe even an hour, then what do you want them to do? Because they need to be able to deal with the threat.
We do have armed response units all around, and anyone listening to this show out in the counties, you could be in a very rural county, the major city that is closest to you will have an armed response team, but as you say, it's likely to be 20-25 minutes away.
The travel times are huge in these places, and bear in mind, I always go back to the attack that happened on the Palace of Westminster. There are more police officers in the Palace of Westminster at any given time than most constabularies put out in their whole constabulary on a night duty. So we have to understand that, okay, London seems to be the biggest threat, and quite rightly it is, but it could happen anywhere. That's the decision of where it happens is up to the terrorist, and I think we as a society need to have the protection. So what I'm saying here is I think circumstances are changing, and I think police officers will need to be armed in the future.
So do I, absolutely. And yet, when we look at our politicians in Westminster on the front benches, everybody runs away from this and says it's against the traditions of British policing. But as Chris Phillips, my guest this morning, has said, circumstances have changed. Another very contentious issue in terms of dealing with this problem is the fact there are about 3,000 people who are suspected terrorists, a further 20,000 who have links or have been linked in some way to ISIS or extremism. There have been some calls, Richard Kemp, former Afghanistan commander, being one example. There have been calls for the 3,000 people to be rounded up and interned. What is your view on that?
Internment has never worked historically. However, and I have to say this, I think circumstances, again, are going to change. What we've seen most recently is the terrorists moving towards bombs. Now, I don't think people quite understand the danger of a vehicle bomb that happens in one of our cities. If the circumstances happened and a large vehicle bomb decimated one of our cities, killing potentially hundreds, if not thousands of people, the circumstances would change dramatically, and I think people may have a different view. And don't think this. I can understand people might think this is scaremongering, but if you look back at the attack by the IRA in Manchester and in the City of London, those attacks were made and deliberately. The police were given 45 minutes to clear the city. They cleared the city, and if you look at the explosions, you can see them on YouTube. You can see the pictures of them on the internet. The decimation is huge, and the death toll would have been huge and enormous if people had still been in those businesses. Yeah. Now, what we've seen recently in Barcelona were an attempt to make 3 vehicle bombs. If that attack had been 3 vehicle bombs, we would have been looking at hundreds upon hundreds of people killed.
We would. And finally, Chris, what prospects do you see? Because we've gone to critical in terms of the assessment of where we are. How long is it going to take for this to get back to low? Or do you think this is something we're going to have to live with for many years to come?
Nigel, 15 years ago, I was standing up with others and saying that this is a generational threat. This is a generation that we're going to have to deal with this. We're a generation further down the line. It's now probably another 2 generations before we can see some kind of end to this. And I think all your working life, or my working life, and probably all our children's working lives will deal with this problem.
Wow. Well, my thanks to Chris Phillips, former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office and a former Detective Chief Inspector of the Metropolitan Police. And I thank you, Chris, for the frankness of your views. And we heard there some very strong criticism of the government, of cuts, and the argument that, of course, the reason that soldiers are being drafted in is the police simply don't have the resources themselves. I'm going to give you my view on all of this in a moment and ask you to respond. But for now, you're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's 10:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Dr. Julian Richards, who's security and intelligence expert at the University of Buckingham. Does this speak to stories that in many ways the war over in Raqqa and other areas is increasingly being lost by ISIS?
We can't overestimate how badly ISIS is getting squeezed and hit over in Iraq and Syria. They're being strangled to death at the moment. And this is a very dangerous time because they're clearly lashing out, almost like the death throes of the ISIS organisation.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Hampton by Hilton. Book direct for the lowest price.
Every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
Laughing, loving, playing, guiding, caring.
Being a parent doesn't stop when your life does. Take care of your loved one's futures today at legalandgeneral.com, the UK's #1 life insurance provider.
Growing, learning, dreaming.
You are forever a parent. Cover from £6 a month. Limitations and exclusions apply. Claim based on new life insurance sales in 2016.
The Virgin Atlantic worldwide sale is on. It's your chance to get away to the sunshine, sand dunes and cloud-bursting skyscrapers of Dubai. Or book your place next to the high rollers and pool party goers in legendary Las Vegas. Even touch down on the rolling streets of San Francisco before road tripping down the West Coast. Book now and fly in style to some of the best places in the world with our worldwide sale. Virgin Atlantic. Let it fly. Travel restrictions and T&Cs apply. Visit virginatlantic.com to book.
It's a London derby this weekend on the new Sky Sports Premier League channel as Arsenal visit Stamford Bridge. Will Chelsea's new signing Morata prove himself to the home crowd, or will Czech deny his old club an early season win? So what are you waiting for? Upgrade today and watch 126 live games this season on our new channel dedicated to the Premier League. Now for £18 a month. Search New Sky Sports. Cancellation requires 31 days notice. Further terms apply.
Welcome to the meter cupboard at 49 Acacia Avenue. For years now, the Websters have been scrabbling around in the dark taking meter readings, trying to get Gaz and Lecky under control. Not anymore. They call their energy supplier to get a smart meter installed. From now on, they won't have to take a meter reading to get an accurate bill. Only your energy supplier can carry out your smart meter installation, so contact them today.
Buying a new car is so exciting, but at the same time, a bit daunting. Trudging around the dealers, haggling over price, always wondering if you're getting a good deal. But with CarWow, there's none of that. Just select the car you want, and CarWow brings you the best prices from their network of top dealers. All you have to do is choose which one to buy from. It's car buying with you in the driving seat. Search CarWow and try it today.
Air Canada's having its 80th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with a birthday sale? Right now, take advantage of savings to amazing destinations throughout North America. There's no better time to plan your next adventure. But hurry, book by September 26 for travel on select dates. Visit aircanada.com or call your travel agent.
Got the case? Yeah, but why the underground car park? We look suspicious.
Hello, can I borrow your phone? I've got a flat tyre, I don't have a signal down here.
We're busy.
I promise you I'll be really, really quick.
Get rid of him. Oi, use mine. I'm on Vodafone. 4 bars. That's not what I meant.
Outstanding indoor coverage on our most reliable network ever.
Lovely briefcase, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Vodafone. Power to you.
For verification, see vodafone.co.uk/network.
Right now at Homebase, get 2.5 litre Home of Colour kitchen and bathroom, 1 coat or Duracoat emulsion, just 2 for £24. Excludes Pure Brilliant White. Homebase.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Following the Parsons Green tube bombing, there have now been 2 arrests. One, an 18-year-old trying to get out of the country, arrested at Dover. Somebody who was a refugee who'd been fostered by an elderly couple in Sunbury-on-Thames, Surrey. And another arrest this morning, this time a 21-year-old in Hounslow. And with this being, yet another terrorist attack, the 4th this year in London, the 4th this year, just in this city, we have been asking ourselves over the last quarter of an hour, has the government been doing enough to protect us from attack? And we had with us a moment ago Chris Phillips, the former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office, and I have to say, I thought his interview this morning and his comments were certainly the hardest hitting that I've ever come across from somebody associated with the UK police force. He absolutely condemned the government for the level of cuts and said that when they tell us they're putting more security, more money into counter-terrorism, they're simply not telling the truth. They're doing it by dragging people in from other areas of policing, leaving them to deteriorate. He very much supported the view that our tradition over, a long time of not arming police officers, frankly, was now completely out of date, and that needs to change. And he also said that we're coming close to the moment when the 3,000 suspected terrorists in this country will need to be rounded up, arrested and interned. He didn't say we're quite there yet, but he said he thinks we're very, very close. So it was hard-hitting stuff. My view on all of this is that our government and governments right across Europe have been very, very reluctant to face up to the severity of the problem in front of us. Reluctant, I think, in many ways, to admit their own mistakes, because nearly all of this has been caused by government policy, either in the last couple of years or indeed in many cases over decades. It's not just immigration, it's actually about the total failure to even attempt over the last few decades to integrate people in our society. I think whenever there's an outrage, whenever there's a bomb, the Prime Minister goes on television, the Mayor of London goes on television, we're told we're going to do more. We're told we're now going to put soldiers on the streets, for example, after this attack. We're constantly playing catch-up. If we're going to take this threat seriously, we have to, absolutely have to, routinely train and teach our police officers, whether it's a gun or a taser or both, but we have to have armed police. Had that happened on London Bridge that night, those 3 terrorists would not have got in to Borough Market and caused those terrible, harrowing scenes that all of us witnessed. And I think we have to massively increase the number of people working on counter-terrorism and intelligence. And I don't mean increasing by a few dozen officers. I mean a massive increase. If there are 3,000 suspected terrorists in this country and we're only monitoring 500 of them, frankly, the government is not, in my opinion, doing enough to protect us from terrorism. They are still, to a large extent, in denial about what they have done to us. That's how I feel about this. Merciful the bomb did not properly detonate on Friday, But one morning, we'll wake up, and it may just not be like that. I wonder what Daniel in Cardiff thinks of this debate so far. Daniel, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you doing?
Well, I'm all right, but I'm very worried about where we're going in the future, I have to say.
Well, yeah, I'm a 21-year-old student at Cardiff, and I have to say I'm incredibly worried about my future here. I obviously, being brought up in Tony Blair's generation, where we've all been taught to sort of loathe our country, loathe our history, loathe our values. It's disparaging, really. I just don't know what to say about it anymore. It's just our country's become such a state, and all of our politicians, as you say, are just completely and utterly facetious and unwilling to face up to the issues we're all worried about as a country. And there's a large proportion of white working class people who are whose noses are just rubbed in the ground and rubbed in the mud. It's rather, I think it's disgraceful.
Well, I mean, there's also a concern, Daniel, about the counter-response. Now, I just want to confirm that this 18-year-old, it's not 100% confirmed that he's a refugee, but it's thought to be a refugee because that couple in Sunbury had a lot of people in that house over the course of the last couple of years from Syria, from Iraq and from Afghanistan. But the other worry, Daniel, is that what we'd also get is, if we could put it this way, an extreme right reaction which sort of becomes a loathing, distrust or dislike of anybody, of a different religion or a different colour. That's equally worrying, Daniel, is it?
But this is the point, isn't it? We're now having two conflicting worldviews where you've got white working class communities who are now having to struggle for these resources, having to struggle for their government's attention, and actually it's become too London-centric. I was just watching the new Sky News channel on 10.
Yep.
And our politicians have not learned that people outside of our big cities, in the rural areas, I mean, I'm from Devon, but people that live in Rotherham and other places, they've been completely forgotten about for the last 20 or so years. And now, our democratic system is coming to a head, and none of the political parties are representing any of the majority of working class people anymore. And we've just had 5 terror attacks in 1 year. People are frightened. Our politicians are dilly-dallying on Brexit, having civil wars in their own parties. We need leadership, and nobody is providing it. And this is the problem. I'm 21. I'm in my last year at university. What am I going to do now? Where is our country going? Where are our politicians leading us? Because quite frankly, nobody has the balls to stand up and actually say where we are going.
Do you think, Daniel, that with a bit of iron resolve and will, that our politicians could do more?
But even now, the public, I mean, with the Grenfell Tower disaster, we don't have that anymore. They want you to emote. They want you to sit there in emotion and show your
solidarity. We all stand together. Our lives will be unaffected by terror, Daniel. That's what they tell us.
It's bollocks.
Right, well, we could do without that one. Yeah, OK. Right, we're going to move on. Daniel there, a 21-year-old from Cardiff, getting very, very heated, very upset, feeling that nobody actually is standing up and confronting these problems. Adam in Carrickfergus. And Adam, your part of the world knew a lot about terrorism over many, many years. Is the government doing enough to confront the current threat?
Not at all, Nigel. They're a total failure, aren't they? Since all this has been going on, what's happened? We've lit a few candles and sang a few John Lennon songs, but no, nothing's been done. Nothing's been changed. I just heard one of the commentators you had on earlier saying the situation is changing all the time, but we as like a security side of things are not. We're back in the 60s, charging after people with truncheons. The time has come now that we have to totally change our police force.
What is it, Adam? What is it, Adam, about? What is it about? I mean, you think our police force should be armed. I certainly think our police force should be armed. Chris Phillips, the former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office with me a moment ago, thinks it's time to arm our police officers. And I saw some opinion polling suggesting that well over 2/3 of the country now thinks it's time that we should arm our police officers. What is it, Adam, about our leaders where they have such a different view of the world to the rest of us?
they live in their bubble, Nigel. You know that for sure. But can I ask you one thing, Nigel? And since I've set up and started noticing yourself and UKIP and the likes of, I've noticed that you come under such a enormous amount of slagging. And I would just like to know, especially even some of your fellow colleagues on LBC are constantly slagged off from 10 to 1, by the way. But I would ask you, how do you hold your patience, your temper?
Do you know?
You're the only one.
Do you know, Adam?
Nigel, can I just answer one thing? This is important. How do you not say to people, "I told you so"?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. In 2014. I said it was clear to me that for the first time we had a fifth column living within our country, albeit a minority, but a group of people living within our country that hate us and actually want to kill us. And I was absolutely condemned for daring to say it. And then, after one of the early terrorist attacks, I said, look, we clearly haven't got enough police. Let's put the army on the streets to give the police time to deal with the problem. And, you'd have thought, Adam, from the response I got from the leaderships of both the main political parties and nearly all the media, that I was sort of looking for sort of military junta-style takeover for the country. So awful it was what I'd said. And I've no doubt, Adam, today...
Unbelievable.
I've no doubt it'll be today, I'll be told that it's a disgrace that I want to ruin the great traditions of British policing by arming our police force. How do I keep my calm, Adam? How do I hold my patience? I do it because I believe that I'm right. And do you know something, Adam? I couldn't care less what the rest of them think anyway. Thank you for your call and for your question. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It is now 10:30 and time for the news with Andy Ivey.
A 21-year-old man has been arrested in West London by police investigating Friday's terror attack on a tube train. He's the second person being questioned after an 18-year-old was detained in Dover yesterday. A British Airways flight to London has been held on the tarmac at Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport for extra security checks. Passengers were evacuated and searched as a precaution. Boris Johnson has been accused of backseat driving by the Home Secretary Amber Rudd over his Brexit blueprint. The Foreign Secretary's 4,000-word newspaper article yesterday has been viewed as a challenge to Theresa May's leadership. LBC weather, sunshine and locally heavy thundery showers in the southern half of England, highs of 16 degrees.
LBC travel, as you've heard in the news in South Gloucestershire, the northbound M5 remains closed between junction 16 and junction 14 for Thornbury. That's because of a serious accident. It's causing queues approaching the closure there. In London, Romford Road in Stratford is blocked in both directions because of an accident. It's causing queues. And also in London, Denmark Hill and Camberwell is blocked southbound because of a police investigation. That's causing delays back to Camberwell Green. Onto public transport, the Hammersmith and City Line and the Circle Line have no service running between Edgware Road and Hammersmith for engineering works. And Southern have no service running between London Bridge to East Croydon and West Croydon for engineering works. They also have various bus replacement services running in West Sussex and services from Brighton. LBC Travel, I'm Emily Rose.
This is LBC.
Global's Make Some Noise Day returns on Friday the 6th of October. LBC's charity to help make some noise for those who don't get heard. This year we want to help even more charities, such as the Children's Liver Disease Foundation. Here's Claire, whose daughter Eleanor had to have a liver transplant.
We didn't know what the future was going to bring, other than we were going to have to watch our beautiful little girl get very sick.
Holding her and saying to her, you fight this.
Right now you can get involved and help change lives by donating at lbc.co.uk.
Welcome to London's exquisite Indian dining experience, Marla Restaurant. The finest North Indian cuisine in the most charming setting. Find us in the heart of one of London's divine hidden gems, St Catherine's Dock. Marla Restaurant. Visit us in St Catherine's Dock or go to marlarestaurant.co.uk.
Marla. Discover a jewel in London's secret paradise. Whoever they want to be in life, give them a great start with Wellkid. Carefully balanced, great-tasting vitamins and minerals for 4 to 12-year-olds, with specific nutrients such as zinc and vitamin D, which support normal immune system function. The Wellkid range from Vitabiotics, from Boots, pharmacies and vitabiotics.com.
Hi, I was hoping to get a price on selling my car. Online, they offered me £3,000.
OK, how about £4,000?
What? Really? Brilliant.
Yeah, great news. We buy any car too, but we pay £1,000 more.
We call that one of life's small victories. Bring Vauxhall a quote from the leading online car buyer and we'll beat it by £1,000 when you trade in your old car for a brand new Vauxhall. Search Vauxhall Buy Any Car. Vauxhall. Isn't life brilliant? Offer in part exchange for new passenger car orders from the 1st of September, which are subsequently registered by 30th of September, based on the true condition of the vehicle. Participating retailers only. Terms and conditions apply. See vauxhall.co.uk/WeBuyAnyCar2.
The world's best low-cost, long-haul airline just got better. Fly Norwegian to America from as little as £130. Start your holiday on board our Boeing 787 Dreamliner with hours of blockbuster entertainment flying non-stop from London Gatwick. Book now at norwegian.com. Fares are one-way, including taxes, subject to availability. Book by 18th September. Travel from 16th October to 16th March 2018, excluding weekends, school and public holidays. Baggage fees may apply. Visit norwegian.com for full details.
At Oak Furnitureland, everyone knows our furniture is 100% solid hardwood.
And it's also 50% off.
But most importantly, it's 100% solid hardwood.
Yes, but don't forget it's also 50% off.
Don't miss Oak Furnitureland's low price sale, where you'll find 100% solid hardwood with up to 50% off. Our low price sale must end Sunday. Visit oakfurnitureland.co.uk to find your nearest store.
Onward.
You've worked hard your whole life, building up your business and your personal wealth, only for the taxman to take a big chunk after you're gone. Protect your family and loved ones by talking to one of the estate planning specialists at Barnes Rofe. We'll look at your situation and help you to plan ahead and manage your estate for inheritance tax. Don't delay. Visit barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe. Clever accountants for business.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
In response to the Parsons Green tube bombing, I'm asking you, is our government doing enough to protect us from these terrorist attacks? My view is they're most certainly not. My view is they really haven't woken up to the full scale of what we face. They won't admit, frankly, in many ways, to their own policy failures. There are a lot of things we need to do. One of them is arming the police, which, by the way, would not have stopped what happened on Friday morning, but could have stopped, and would have stopped, I believe, what happened in Borough Market just a few months ago. So I don't think government's doing enough. You know, we heard from Chris Phillips, our terrorism specialist, telling us that actually resources have been cut. There's a lot more that needs to be done. That's my view. But look, maybe you think I'm wrong. Maybe you think actually government is getting it about right. Maybe you feel we don't want government and the secret services intruding more into our privacy and into our lives. Maybe you think that the prospect of interning 3,000 people who are known suspected terrorists goes against all the principles of British law. Maybe you think arming our police isn't the right way ahead. Equally, I want to hear from you too on 0345 6060 973. David from Bracknell says to me by text, well said, Daniel from Cardiff, you spoke for millions. Daniel was the 21-year-old, very, very upset and frustrated and feeling that no senior politician is actually confronting the issue. The reason why they don't agree to arming the police is because whichever government in power gives that order, they will look upon it as an admission of failure. They have lost the battle and inevitably things are worse. Well, I don't know about that. Personally, I think if the government was to announce that all police officers are now to be trained and that at a minimum uniformed police officers on our streets will be carrying a taser, if not more. Do you know what? I don't think the public would view that as failure. I think the public would view that as, gosh, the government has recognised the severity of the problem. Nigel, so agree with you about protecting the UK. Sad, many UK politicians are so PC that nothing is being done. Only POTUS in the US acts. Well, of course, there is no big news story or crisis within which the President of the USA does not give some form of opinion. And he was busy tweeting, of course, on Friday, saying, another attack in London by a loser terrorist. These are sick and demented people who were in the sights of Scotland Yard. Must be proactive. Now, that was interesting, wasn't it? He said terrorists who were in the sight of Scotland Yard. Firstly, people said the President shouldn't have said this, because if he was privy to information, he should have kept it private. And Theresa May did actually, in an interview, kick back quite strongly against this and say, well, it's better not to speculate. I don't know whether Trump had that information or not, but I tell you this, the pattern here is pretty regular. That the people who commit these acts are young men who are out of work, nearly invariably linked to repeated habitual use of illegal drugs and substances of some kind, and in most cases they are people already known to the authorities. So was Trump right to say this? Well, whether he had the info or not, it turns out that he was right. Because what we do know about this house in Sunbury-on-Thames is that the police have been visiting that house on a fairly regular basis. Indeed, 2 weeks ago, 3 police turned up at the house and spent several hours there. Now, it is a foster home. There are other youngsters living there. It is possible that the police were there for somebody else living in that house, but I tell you what, it's pretty unlikely. I wouldn't bet on it. So if indeed, and we'll know more as the next couple of days goes by, if indeed this young man does turn out to have been somebody who was deeply under suspicion, it does start to raise questions. You know, at what point we do things, and I've no doubt there'll be a hearing in a magistrate's court within a few days where perhaps we'll learn and hear a little bit more. But what about Trump's comments? Was Trump right to say the things that he said? He also said loser terrorists must be dealt with in a much tougher manner. The internet is their main recruitment tool, which we must cut off and use better. Well, so Trump there suggesting that somehow we need to control the internet more to stop this particular form of radicalisation, and one that is perhaps the most difficult problem of all to deal with. Paul from Aldershot, should we arm the police, Paul? Is the government doing enough?
No, they're not, Nigel, and I applaud you on behalf of the British majority working people for having the guts and the courage to say what we're all thinking. Thank you very much from all of us, and they should routinely arm every officer. How can you have any responding officer go to an incident where there is a terrorist, an armed terrorist, in a shopping centre or an underground tube station, that's to go there with a truncheon or a taser? They need to be fully armed. To deal with a threat, you have to meet the threat with overwhelming force. Yeah. And that's what you must do.
You know, I'd love to hear Amber Rudd, the Home Secretary, Paul, say that this morning. In fact, all she's been doing is backstabbing Boris Johnson for the article that he wrote in the Daily Telegraph yesterday, and which we will discuss at the top of the hour on this show. But no, Paul, whenever I've raised this issue, you know, and this, I mean, and as I say, this is just one part of many things the government needs to do. But whenever I raise this issue, you know, I'm looked at as if I've said something truly dreadful and against British values. And of course, the argument really, Paul, is that whilst it may have been sustainable for 150 years not to routinely arm our police officers, circumstances have changed, Paul, haven't they?
Well, you're not alone there, Nigel. I quite often am accused of being sort of overzealous or right-wing or whatever. The simple fact is, to meet and deal with the threats of today, you need to fully arm the police service. Yep. They need the equipment and tools necessary, and manpower, because all their manpower.
Well, certainly, Paul, the police cuts, and by the way, it is worth pointing out that this all happened during the 6-year period in which Theresa May was the Home Secretary. So I'd like, Paul, to see some leadership from her on this, as well as perhaps another issue that we'll talk about at the top of the hour. Paul, just how frustrated do you feel with our leaders?
I'm just completely frustrated. I don't have any words in the English language to tell you how frustrated I am.
Right.
I just wish you were Prime Minister.
well, and certainly not words that could be used on this show at 10:42 in the morning. No, I'm sure. Paul from Aldershot, thank you. And Paul, another caller, feeling the government are not facing up to reality, are not recognising the scale of the threat that we face, that probably is actually generational. And by the way, I'm not suggesting, folks, that we can stop all of this from happening, but there's quite a lot of it. There's quite a lot we can do. There's quite a lot we can do to make ourselves just a bit safer. Nigel, all police should be armed with tasers, not guns. Mistakes can happen, as with the Brazilian Charles Mendes, who was killed by mistake. Yes, I do remember that. Some of others of you will. It was 2005. It was after the underground bombing, and this Charles Mendes, Brazilian, I think he tried to jump over the barriers at Stockwell Tube and was shot dead, and he certainly wasn't a terrorist. So, yeah, mistakes can happen. MPs are slashing police funding. They couldn't afford to arm them. Can you imagine the bill? And what if they get sued? I get on Twitter. Well, I frankly, you know, I've criticised the government over the years for the money it's sent to the European Union, for the money it's spent on the foreign aid budget, for the fact that their spending is out of control and we're still running a massive public deficit. But when it comes to keeping people safe on our streets, there's quite a lot of other budgets that, frankly, need to be cut to make room for this to happen. Martin in Leeds is my next caller, and I believe a former police officer. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel.
So, what's to be done, Martin?
Well, me personally, I wasn't a firearms officer. I'm an ex-serving soldier in the British Army, and then finished my working career as a police officer. Firstly, I do not agree with the army being used as a direct replacement to the police in relation to the security within our cities.
Yep.
Which I'll come on to into a moment, the reasons why.
Sure.
But I am fully behind arming the police. I think it's an imperative preventative measure towards mass murder and terror. It's unfortunate it does not fit in with the idyllic image that the world has about the good old-fashioned British Bobby, but those days have gone. They've long gone. We're now in a position of fear, where people's lives are at stake, people's property, people's liberty, and something has to be done to protect the public.
Martin, I'm absolutely with you on that. Time is running short. Just tell me briefly, if you would, why it's wrong for soldiers, armed soldiers, to be brought in to help in this crisis.
From a personal point of view, as a young soldier, I responded to orders directly. I wasn't the most, let's say, the most lateral thinking person, because the training for a soldier is very much direct with a specific goal, and that's to obey orders and primarily to be trained in combat. Police officers have got to use discretionary powers, which are completely different to the military, and I believe that a thorough training programme to make sure that the police not only are armed, but to be armed in a very, very competent manner to use those firearms within the boundaries of cities where the public are. It is imperative for the future of the police, for their safety, but more importantly, the safety of the British people.
Okay, no, Martin, you've made the point well. There is a difference between policing and a police officer's training and that of being a soldier. Martin, thank you for making that point. The reason that I was proposing that we should use the army a couple of years ago, and indeed the government now appear to have gone to that position, is we haven't got enough police because we've cut them back massively ever since Theresa May became Home Secretary in 2010. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 10:45.
This is LBC.
Global's Make Some Noise Day returns on Friday the 6th of October. LBC's charity to help make some noise for those who don't get heard. This year we want to help even more charities, such as the Children's Liver Disease Foundation. Here's Claire, whose daughter Eleanor had to have a liver transplant.
We didn't know what the future was going to bring, other than we were going to have to watch our beautiful little girl get very sick.
Holding her and saying to her, you fight this.
Right now you can get involved and help change lives by donating at lbc.co.uk.
This weekend on the new Sky Sports Premier League channel, Man United face Everton. As Rooney and Lukaku switch places, who will prove themselves first? So what are you waiting for? Upgrade today and watch 126 live games this season on our new channel dedicated to the Premier League. Now for £18 a month. Search New Sky Sports. Cancellation requires 31 days' notice. Further terms apply.
The Virgin Atlantic worldwide sale is on. It's your chance to get away to the sunshine, sand dunes and cloud-bursting skyscrapers of Dubai. Or book your place next to the high rollers and pool party goers in legendary Las Vegas. Even touch down on the rolling streets of San Francisco before road tripping down the West Coast. Book now and fly in style to some of the best places in the world with our worldwide sale. Virgin Atlantic. Let it fly. Travel restrictions and T&Cs apply. Visit virginatlantic.com to book.
Those pesky leaves have fallen again. No bother. Get home to our succulent southern fried chicken meal for two with crispy potatoes and salad for only £6. Give yourself something to look forward to this autumn evening with our delicious meals for two. Choose from any mouth-watering main and 2 tasty sides. Another great value meal deal for you from the Co-op. Subject to availability. See participating stores for details. Meal deal includes 1 main and 2 sides for £6.
Relax. It's Trust a Trader. You pop in your postcode and find great tradespeople right on your doorstep. Visit trustatrader.com.
Maths homework, romantic breaks, holiday checklists, boarding passes and the local lingo, song lyrics, singing coaches and much needed vocal cord exercises, fairy cake recipes, DIY witches hats, Easter egg hunts and spa breaks, forgotten theatre tickets, train timetables, birthday invites, party bags and top tips for avoiding sugar rushes.
Whatever your family is printing, with up to 3 years worth of ink included with selected models of the Epson EcoTank printer, it means you can just keep on going. 3 years worth of ink is based on an average print volume of 140 pages per month.
The Renault scrappage scheme is now on. You could save thousands on a brand new Renault. So say au revoir to your old car. Model exclusions apply. Eligibility criteria apply. Visit Renault.co.uk/scrappage.
How many tablets did you take this morning? On average, people over 55 say 4. That's over 100 a month. Well, at least for your painful joints, there's an alternative treatment. Voltarol 12-hour gel works deep in the joint to fight pain and inflammation all day long. Voltarol 12-hour gel. Let's hear it for the joy of movement. Ask your pharmacist.
Voltarol 12-hour Emigel P 2.32% gel contains diclofenac diethylamonium for relief of pain and inflammation. Always read the label.
Right now at Homebase, get 2.5 litre Home of Colour kitchen and bathroom, 1 coat or Duracoat emulsion, just 2 for £24. Excludes Pure Brilliant White. Homebase.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Is the government doing enough to protect us from terrorist attacks? And do the police and others have sufficient manpower and resources and guns and whatever else it takes to make us a safer country? Kevin on Facebook says, the government are protected by armed police. What have they got against us being protected by armed police? And Lisa says, fearing terrorists is enough. I don't want to fear impatient police officers. The second person this morning that has made that point. And remember, that Brazilian man did get gunned down at Stockwell Tube Station back in 2005, and he was innocent of any terrorist suspicions at all. I go next to Anna in Worcester. Anna, are the government doing enough?
No, that's a fact. They're not doing enough.
Right.
But I don't believe that our police force should be routinely armed, because what's going to happen is we will normalise the use of guns, and more criminals will start using guns. What we need to do is we need to look at the anti-terrorist unit and double or triple its numbers. So a specific area within the police force needs extra manpower and obviously more guns. Otherwise, we're destroying our way of life and making it more likely that innocent people will be killed. So that's looking at a solution.
Yeah.
But we fail to look at the causes of this. I think, whether we like it or not, we need to now look at travel bans from certain countries. The only way these countries are going to get to grips with these extremists is if it affects them. It affects the libertarians, affects those that live a much broader way of life where they're not tied down to a certain theocratical ideology. And then only themselves then can change that. So we need to look at a two-pronged attack, not just solution, but cause.
Yeah.
And we also need to look at the causes within this country. We have a culture which is mainly masculine biased. We need to even that out. We need to free Muslim women. We need to stop accepting practices which undermines our liberal culture, main liberal culture in this country. And so this has to be done by taking a look at practices within certain communities and saying they're no longer acceptable.
Yeah, and by that, Anna, you mean FGM, etc., and many things that, frankly, it would appear we've effectively turned a blind eye to, happening in this country for years and years and years. Anna, listen, I thank you. You've made lots of points there, made them very well. Anna is against arming the police because she believes if you arm the police, the criminals then will take guns as well. And it's difficult to say that's not true, but we're living in changed circumstances, I feel. Imran is calling from Woking. Imran, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. I'm the first-time caller.
You're very welcome.
LBC.
You're very welcome, Imran. So, what's to be done, Imran? Is the government doing enough?
I don't think so. I think the foreign policy isn't right. putting more police and more army on the street is not going to solve the problem. The problem is, I'm a bit nervous at the minute, so...
That's all right.
The problem is...
Say, Imran, this is a station of free speech, and no one's pushing you, and say in your own time, what you think.
Yes. What I think is the foreign policy isn't right. Why these people who were born and bred in this country, they're turning against their own country. Why is that? We need to look into that.
Well, isn't it that their minds are being poisoned? And you're right, in one way, that perhaps Iraq did, radicalise a few more people in this country, because it allowed this message to get put of look at what Britain and America are doing to your family's homeland. But Imran, Iraq was a long time ago. I mean, we have had problems inside some of the mosques with hate preachers. We've certainly got problems with the internet and online. And I think, Imran, perhaps a feeling amongst many that the police are not as rigorous in applying the law in all sorts of areas with some of the migrant communities for fear of being thought to be racist.
I think, I wanted to be a police officer myself. I would like to see as many. I'm an immigrant myself.
Yep.
I wasn't born in this country.
Yep.
I came into this country about 15, 16 years ago. My missus is born in Manchester. I got kids here. My everything is here. I love this country. I'm a British citizen now.
Yeah, well done.
I think the problem is that these people, when they look on Facebook, they look into the videos. Americans are bombing Iraq, they're bombing Syria, they're bombing all these Muslim countries. This is where the youngsters, they go into these people's hands, where they can, come to us, we'll teach you what the right way. These people are killing your homeland.
I know. Imran, I do accept that the Iraq decision particularly probably did aid some of that poisonous language. Imran, one quick last question for you. We had a previous lady making the point, whilst we have a problem in this country, what we need to do is to stop that problem being added to by those coming in. Is a Trump-style travel ban from certain war-torn countries a sensible approach?
No, it's not a sensible approach. Not at all.
Not at all?
No.
Right, so again, you feel if we do that, that adds to the hate preachers online or wherever they may be. Yeah, okay, Imran, I thank you very much for your call. Imran making his point. My last caller on this subject is going to be Harry, who's calling from Walthamstow. Harry, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. Very briefly, it's very sad, but we've now come to the point we have to face reality. And all our police officers must be routinely armed, and not just with tasers, because they are known to fail. They must be armed with proper pistols. If they can't defend themselves, how can they be expected to defend the public?
Harry, I see the logic of it. I mean, Anna made a very good point that if you routinely arm the police, more of the criminal gangs, the burglars or whatever, will carry weapons as well. So it could lead. No, it's a reasonable point. I mean, it is a very reasonable point.
Behind the times, unfortunately. The criminal world is vastly over. The police are outgunned by the criminal world.
Well, do you think...
It's about time they face reality.
Do you think that if the average gang of people committing house burglaries thought that if the police chased after them, the police would be armed, wouldn't that be more of an incentive for them to be armed?
Well, they carry arms already. A lot of these people carry knives.
Okay, no, fair point. So, Harry, let me just ask you. I was teasing the argument. I wasn't disagreeing with you. I think we have to recognise the world's changed. I think we have to arm our police officers.
It's sad, but it's reality.
I think that's a very good way of putting it. So, what is it, Harry, about our leaders and our parliamentarians and our London liberal media? Why are they still so opposed to it?
Well, because they're surrounded by security, never touches, real life never touches them, and also that they cling to this old idea of the British Bobby on the beat with a truncheon and a friendly smile, and they won't accept reality. They've got to.
They don't accept reality. Harry, you've made your point extremely well. Hi, Nigel. What does it take for Theresa May to understand we need to have a zero-tolerance policy on terrorism? Well, in many ways that links back to what we discussed earlier on. You know, there are 3,000 suspected terrorists in this country. Do we want to go for the option of interning them all? My worry is if we do that, actually, we will add fuel to the fire. That's my concern. Maybe I'm a little bit behind my times, but if we're not going to intern people, then certainly what we absolutely have to do is to put many, many more resources, police resources, into counter-terrorism and not cut them, as Chris Phillips made clear earlier on today is what's happened. Now, coming up in the next hour, Boris Johnson has revived his Brexit claim, not mine, about the £350 million a week for the National Health Service, saying it would be good if a lot of that money went to the health service once we leave. This all happened in a 4,000-word article ahead of Theresa May making a major speech later on this week. Should the Prime Minister try to honour Boris's claim? If you think Boris is dead wrong to have said what he said, call me on 0345 6060 973. Maybe you think he's right and we can use all this money for the NHS, in which case text at 84850, or maybe Boris should have shut up until the Prime Minister had spoken, in which case you can tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. Stay tuned, because it all starts next.
On FM, online, on your mobile and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, anti-terror police investigating a rush-hour bomb on a tube train that left 30 people injured have made a second arrest. They're also continuing to search a house at Sunbury-on-Thames. LBC's senior reporter Vincent McAviney has the latest.
With the threat level still at critical, the Met's counter-terrorism unit arrested a 21-year-old man in Hounslow at around midnight last night. He's been questioned under Section 41 of the Terrorism Act in a South London police station. And police are continuing to question an 18-year-old man arrested yesterday morning in the port of Dover in connection with Friday's attack. Vincent McAviney, LBC, Parsons Green.
Ministers have drawn up proposals to make sure the fight against terror isn't hit after the UK leaves the EU. A plan is being published tomorrow on a new treaty to give legal backing to intelligence, law enforcement and criminal justice partnerships after March 2019. A British Airways flight to London has been evacuated at Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport for extra security checks. A passenger says the plane, which was bound for Heathrow, was surrounded by police and fire crews. The airline says it was a precaution. Boris Johnson has been accused of backseat driving by the Home Secretary Amber Rudd over his Brexit blueprint. The Foreign Secretary's 4,000-word newspaper article yesterday has been viewed as a challenge to Theresa May's leadership, but his biographer Andrew Jimson has told LBC Mr Johnson would take a much bolder approach in the negotiations to leave the EU.
If there is a deal, then it'll have to be sold both to the Conservative Party and country. And who is the salesman? Well, it's certainly not Theresa May. She was useless during the general election at selling the Conservative Party's ideas to the wider public. Boris can do that, so he'll be needed to sign up to the deal at the end, so he ought to be bound in now.
Nigel will be leading Britain's conversation on this next. The Chancellor is reported to be looking at lowering university tuition fees in England. Philip Hammond is said to be considering a cap of £7,500 a year instead of the current level of £9,250. Part of the northbound M5 remains closed in Gloucestershire while police investigate a crash which left 4 people dead. A lorry went through the central reservation and hit oncoming traffic. A woman and 2 children are fighting for their lives in hospital. 2 of the world's biggest music acts, Ed Sheeran and U2, have called off concerts this weekend in the US city of St. Louis. Police there said they couldn't provide enough security following violence at protests after a white former policeman was cleared of murdering a black man. LBC weather, sunshine and locally heavy thundery showers in the southern half of England, highs of 16 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Andy Ivy.
Say you're a year into your contract and the hot new phone is released, but you're not allowed to upgrade without paying through the nose. Let's just say you're not best pleased. But say there was a new mobile company, one that lets you swap your old phone for the latest one every 12 months, free of charge, delivered to your door. Well, say hello to Sky Mobile. Sky, believe in better.
Free of any early upgrade, admin and delivery charges. 24-month interest-free loan with data plan needed for each new phone. Trade-in value credited to existing loan. Subject to status and availability. Terms apply. See sky.com/swap help.
LBC Travel, as you've just heard in the news, in Gloucestershire, the northbound M5 remains closed between junction 16 and junction 14 for Thornbury. That's because of a serious accident there. That's causing queues from Cribbs Causeway approaching the closure, and the carriageway is likely to remain closed for most of the day for investigation work. In London, Romford Road in Stratford is blocked in both directions. That's because of an accident. It's causing queues there. Also in London, Denmark Hill and Camberwell remains closed southbound. That's because of a police investigation. It's causing delays to Camberwell Green. Looking at public transport, the Hammersmith and City Line and the Circle Line have no service running between Edgware Road and Hammersmith for engineering works, and Northern have a bus replacement service running between Manchester Piccadilly and Manchester United Football Ground. That's affecting those travelling to the stadium this afternoon. LBC Travel, I'm Emily Rose.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
For the last few months, it's been a very frustrating time for Leave voters. We have seen the Cabinet steadily talk about transitional arrangements. We've seen the Labour Party completely shift its manifesto position and now saying we should stay in the customs union and the single market, at least for the transitional period and perhaps actually ultimately forever. And we've been beginning to wonder, is there anyone out there speaking for the things that we voted for in that referendum? And I think that challenge has been very much on Theresa May's shoulders. I said a few weeks ago I felt that unless she stamped her authority on both the Brexit process and started to look to be in charge of the UK government, that I thought she'd be gone by Christmas. And then we get the announcement that she's going to give a major speech on Britain's future relationship with the EU. It'll happen in Florence this coming Friday. And okay, fine. I was sort of quite looking forward to it. It would be an update from her Lancaster House speech given earlier this year. Perhaps we get a real sense of direction. And perhaps the EU, who frankly have been treating us pretty badly in my opinion, might get some sense that the Brits will stand up for themselves. And into all of this, I was amused on Friday morning to read a piece in the Telegraph by Fraser Nelson, the editor of The Spectator, where he said, "Where has Boris gone? Why is Boris in such total silence? We need to hear from him." Well, it didn't take very long, because the next day, Saturday, there was a 4,000-word piece in the Daily Telegraph from Boris Johnson, backed up by a lot of editorial comment and many other articles, cartoons, you name it. And this was very much Boris is back. It was Boris back saying many of the same things he said during the referendum campaign. We will leave the single market. We will leave the customs union. Not to do so, said Boris, would make a mockery of the referendum result. He didn't mention once transitional arrangements, giving the indication he doesn't really approve of them. He'd rather we just got on and did this. And he also said we should not pay for access to the single market any more than they should pay us for access to our market. So it was very much what I would call clean Brexit territory, what others would call hard Brexit territory. But either way, whichever you cut it, at least there was a vision. And around it, there was lots of positivity, lots of talk about we're a great country, how much better we're going to do post-Brexit, something I think that Leavers had been crying out for. Now, the question, though, is he also raised the £350 million a week. Do you remember that? It was emblazoned over his bus. He went round the country saying we should give £350 million a week to the National Health Service. And since the referendum, it's been used by the other side as being the great lie, because it wasn't right, it wasn't correct, it wasn't accurate. And indeed, many callers to LBC over the course of the last year have attributed it to me. Not guilty. I had nothing to do with it. In fact, I urged Boris's campaign not to use it. But that's by the by. And in the past, I thought, until in the middle of this article, Boris raises it himself again. He says, we will have this £350 million a week, and we can spend a lot of it on the National Health Service. Well, he's quite right. We couldn't spend all of it, because £350 million a week never actually went, because there is a giant, great big UK rebate. So you can argue about figures, but perhaps gross something over 250 million a week goes. It's not 350. Anyway, he's raised that spectre again. It's an attempt by Boris, in my opinion, to justify what he did in the referendum campaign. I think he might have been wiser just to drop it, to leave it. But nonetheless, all of this has put the Prime Minister in a very interesting position. She's giving a major speech in Florence this Friday. Was Boris wrong to have put her in this position? And what should Theresa May do? Should she stand by the things that Boris has said in this article? Should she go for a clean Brexit, or is she going to stick where she was before on transitional arrangements? And either way, this starts to get, for the Conservative Party, a little complicated as their conference looms in a couple of weeks' time. Matthew from Heathrow, what do you make of Boris Johnson's piece, Matthew?
Oh, hi, Nigel. Basically, I think Boris Johnson is just playing politics. I mean, obviously, he's talking with Theresa May, and it's just a plan from the Conservatives that if the negotiations go wrong, but it's their plan B, that he's going to be the bad cop at the moment if they don't get the deal they want. And I'm sure Theresa May is going to announce going down the soft Brexit route. Well, I think is the right route to do, and I think that's what everyone voted for in the last election.
Oh, no. We're not going to agree on that, but that's a separate debate. Matthew, so are you saying that Johnson has written this article and that he's not terribly sincere about it?
Well, I think it's what he feels, but basically it's just that, I mean, the Conservatives, they want to stay in power, obviously, and they just want to cover both angles. So at the moment, the negotiations haven't gone too well by the sounds of it, and he's the one playing bad cop, like
Matthew, I disagree.
Good cop there, but
I disagree, Matthew, because actually we've not heard the pure Brexit voice from anybody in the Cabinet for a very, very long time. And I've been wondering, what on earth has happened to them? What do they put in the water at those Cabinet meetings? Why is everybody going along with the idea of a 3-year transition period, with the idea that we'd go on paying quite a lot of money during that period? Where is everybody? And I think what Boris has done, Matthew, is to help to re-energise the Leave debate. And it's noticeable that already Michael Gove and Priti Patel have come to his side. So, Matthew, I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to say far from this being some sort of collusion with Theresa May. I think it risks quite a big split in the Tory cabinet coming up to their conference.
I think let's wait and see. I mean, we're going to see her announcement, and I think they just want to play it from both sides because they want to be in power. And let's hope that they don't just play politics and they do the right thing for the country. What I believe.
What do you believe? Different to what I believe. But no, Matthew, thank you. So Matthew thinks actually they're all working together. It's all about the Tory party boxing off both sides of the argument. I think he's wrong. The other question, of course, is this Boris Johnson being selfish? Is this Boris Johnson putting his own career above everything else, recognising that the Prime Minister has got a real problem? You know, we talked a week or so back about the fact that Lord Harris, the carpet tycoon, long-time Tory donor, had announced he was withdrawing support, and the fact that unless May gets a grip on this, she will, in my view, be gone by Christmas. I wonder what Charles, who's calling from Bagshot in Surrey, makes of Boris's piece.
Hi, Nigel. Firstly, great show. And before you write me off as a millennial snowflake, I support Trump. I'm a man-made global warming denier, or skeptic, as they say. But I think Boris Johnson is a deluded fool. And I think there's a lot of delusion on Brexit. I voted Remain for the economic reasons, not so much for the European Parliament. But I believe that there's going to be a huge price to pay, and there won't be any money, because my concern is we're going to have another bank bailout to protect them from Brexit, and my concern is the trade deals. We'll get them, but what sort of trade deals? Are we going to end up with India saying we have to have unlimited access to your labour market? I hope it works out, but I've got no respect for Boris Johnson. I just think he's a deluded fool.
So do you disagree with Boris because you disagree with the arguments for Brexit, or do you think that Boris here has been selfish and is playing politics in his own interest?
Oh, he's like any other politician. He's doing it in his self-interest, I guess. But actually, I would respect it if you were the Tory leader.
Right. Well, not much chance of that.
Nigel. I do respect you, Nigel, in the fact at least you stick with you've stuck with this for years. You've never changed.
No.
On your principles here.
No, I haven't, Charles, and I have to say there are probably a lot of Remain voters like you who thought there was an economic case that it was safer that we should stay inside the European Union. It was kind of the status quo argument. But I think, Charles, I'm going to ask you something. It's slightly off script, but, I was there. I heard Mr. Juncker on Wednesday this week, talk about one powerful president, a finance minister that intervenes, every country joining the euro, a European army, a foreign policy, a United States of Europe. I mean, would you want us to have a second referendum and consider rejoining that?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
But the thing is, though, we're talking about sovereignty. We're part of, if we really want total independence, we've got to get out of the United Nations, we've got to get out of NATO, we've got to get out of...
No, we haven't, Charles. No, we haven't, Charles, because NATO's about us as sovereign nations cooperating together. Anyway, listen, Charles, thanks for your call. Interesting. Mark in Billericay. What does Theresa May need to do? Is she going to stand up on Friday in Florence and say Boris is right?
I think Boris, quite frankly, is jockeying for position for ready for the takeover.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom line is, I'm sorry, by the way, nice to talk to you, Nigel. I've been an admirer for many years.
That's very kind of you.
Very good. No problem. But the bottom line is that whatever monies are available, and I believe there will be monies available from Brexiting.
Yep.
Obviously, some form of money must be diverted to the National Health Service. There's no doubt about that.
I mean, that would be a very positive thing, Mark, wouldn't it? Be a very positive thing if the Prime Minister said, we're leaving the European Union, we're going to save a lot of money, it's going to the health service. People would like that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, of course they would.
Yeah.
And, it's not just NHS, there's probably other services as well, which are normally supplied, obviously, from public money.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, as far as Boris is concerned, I don't think it's a collusion thing. I heard one of your speakers.
Yeah, nor do I.
They're just sort of, he's putting forward his point of view. In thinking ahead, you guys got to think ahead all the time. And he's thinking ahead for what's going to be happening. You reckon by Christmas? I reckon, maybe early New Year before we see the demise of May. She made a big boo-boo. She's gone for an overall majority and come unstuck.
I'm not so sure, Mark.
Tory voter.
I'm not so sure, Mark, she can last till the new year, but we'll see. Mark from Billericay making his point. I'll tell you what, whether Boris did it in self-interest or not, I'll tell you one thing, as somebody who spent his life devoted to the Leave campaign, thank goodness somebody in government is speaking up for the things we campaign for and for what people voted on, and is being positive against this constant diet of negativity that I get from the BBC and elsewhere. Boris, reading that piece yesterday morning, did actually cheer me up a bit. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's 11:15.
You are pernickety.
What is the first
I just want to say a couple of things.
My problem with it is the following.
LBC at the weekend. Alex Salmond.
I, like you, took Donald Trump at face value. And in Scotland, he promised thousands of jobs and billions of dollars of investment. When the relationship between the Donald and myself started to break down, it was because he didn't deliver what he had promised to deliver.
Leading Britain's conversation, Alex Salmond. Today from 3 on LBC.
Relax. It's Trust a Trader. You pop in your postcode and find great tradespeople right on your doorstep. Visit trustatrader.com.
After a long day at work, there's nothing Mark likes more than cooking a stir-fry. What he doesn't like is Gaz and Lecky getting out of control. So Mark's had a smart meter installed. Now he's able to see exactly how much energy he's using in pounds and pence and stir-fry to his heart's content. Only your energy supplier can carry out your smart meter installation, so contact them today.
You've worked hard your whole life, building up your business and your personal wealth, only for the taxman to take a big chunk after you're gone. Protect your family and loved ones by talking to one of the estate planning specialists at Barnes Rofe. We'll look at your situation and help you to plan ahead and manage your estate for inheritance tax. Don't delay. Visit barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe. Clever accountants for business.
Happiness starts with a smile.
As one of the UK's leading dental travel clinics, Vital Europe have offered cost-effective dental solutions to over 30,000 patients for the last 10 years. After an initial consultation, our clinics in London and Budapest use dental implants to give you a smile in just 1 day before a further final treatment. With finance packages and a treatment guarantee, take a positive step to a healthier-looking smile with vitaleurope.co.uk.
Those pesky leaves have fallen again. No bother. Get home to our succulent southern fried chicken meal for two with crispy potatoes and salad for only £6. Give yourself something to look forward to this autumn evening with our delicious meals for two. Choose from any mouth-watering main and 2 tasty sides. Another great value meal deal for you from the Co-op. Subject to availability. See participating stores for details. Meal deal includes 1 main and 2 sides for £6.
At Honda, we've put a lot of our best thinking into the Jazz. So when it scored over 9 out of 10 on Revu for quality and practicality, we took it as a challenge. How to improve on what we think is the best small car money can buy. How about making it the best small car that slightly less money can buy? Until the 31st of January, you can own the Jazz for £199 a month with a £199 deposit and 4 years 0% APR. Visit honda.co.uk for details. Terms and conditions apply. Final payment £4,403 and 7 pence.
Maths homework, romantic breaks, holiday checklists, boarding passes and the local lingo, song lyrics, singing coaches and much needed vocal cord exercises, fairy cake recipes, DIY witches hats, Easter egg hunts and spa breaks, forgotten theatre tickets, train timetables, birthday invites, party bags and top tips for avoiding sugar rushes.
Whatever your family is printing, with up to 3 years worth of ink included with selected models of the Epson EcoTank printer, it means you can just keep on going. 3 years worth of ink is based on an average print volume of 140 pages per month.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Boris Johnson breaks his silence. We all wondered what he was up to. He'd said nothing about Brexit, it seemed like, for months and months and months. And then, yesterday morning, in the Daily Telegraph, he puts a 4,000-word piece in which he says, of course we've got to leave the single market and the customs union. Not to do so would make a mockery of the referendum result. And he makes no mention of transitional arrangements at all, but makes clear we should not be paying, once we've left, for access to the single market any more than the Germans should be paying us for access to our market. So let's get the inside track on Boris breaking his silence, and we'll do that by going to Christopher Hope, the assistant editor and chief political correspondent for the Daily Telegraph. Chris, good morning.
Morning, Nigel. Morning.
Morning. So, has Boris Johnson done the Brexit debate and the Tory party a favour or not with this article?
Well, I think it's a favour. I think he is he's pitching his optimistic vision for life outside the European Union in all the in the swelling rhetoric and the patriotic tone of that article that we ran yesterday in Telegraph. You might recognise in your own speeches, Nigel, where I've been to many of those. As you
Actually,
know.
Funny enough, the phraseology that Boris picked up in the referendum, I did recognise certain echoes of the past, yes.
And certainly, it was certainly written like a speech. I mean, he said things like, I stand before you today, etc., etc. So it was written as though it was a speech, but it became an article. But it was 4,000 words, and don't forget, imagine if you're at UKIP and you were leading it again, Nigel, and then you flagged up your big speech in a week's time, and then, you know, a rival to you gave his own speech a week before you.
Well, I would be.
You'd be quite cross, wouldn't you?
No, I wouldn't be cross, Chris. I'd be absolutely flaming mad. I would go bizarre. I mean, I don't often lose my temper, but I would go bonkers if anybody else did this to me. So, I mean, you know, we waited a long time to know when the Prime Minister was going to break her silence effectively on it. We were told it was next Friday, and up pops Boris. Is all of this signalling major Tory party splits ahead of the conference?
It's certainly lit a bonfire under the conference. I mean, to be fair to Boris, I think that he felt frustrated that he wasn't part of a cabinet committee last Tuesday that met to discuss the speech. He was in Hurricane Irma doing his day job, which is being Foreign Secretary.
Yep.
He came back and thought, well, I need to do something about this. And I think then he gave us that op-ed, which we ran in full because of its sheer scale and its importance. I think that people do him a disservice if they say it's all about leadership for him. I think he also he also believes in Brexit, which is not a bad thing for some people. I mean, he believes it, you believe in it.
Yes.
Others believe in it. He believes in Brexit. I think if you look at the kind of Remainer critics, they want to try and undermine Boris, and they do that by saying, well, it's all about leadership, implying he doesn't mean what he's saying, and of course he does. I think, of course, politics is all about power, and everything is viewed through a prism of leadership, and therefore you can't get away from that fact. But I think it's unfair to say it's purely about that.
And how does Theresa May respond this Friday?
Well, she's boxed inside it because the problem she's got now is that we'll be judging her speech on Friday against what Boris Johnson said.
Yep.
So anything less than a pledge on the NHS, etc. And he ran right across what they call the policy waterfront in Whitehall. He talked about tax reform, housing policy. He raised the prospect of banning foreign ownership of homes in Britain, which is amazing.
Yep.
All sorts of areas nowhere near his policy area. And Amber Rudd this morning described it as backseat driving. Well, it certainly was. I mean, I think that, of course, the rival for leadership is Amber Rudd, don't forget.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right. Well, Chris, all I can say from Theresa May's perspective is with friends like Boris, who needs enemies? And thank you very much indeed for joining us. Chris Hope there from the Daily Telegraph. They broke the big Boris story. As he says, it was written. It was 4,000 words, and newspapers rarely publish stuff that is more than 1,500 words, perhaps 2,000 sometimes. And it was very much done in the form of a speech. And given that we know Theresa May is due to give a big speech on Friday, it does look like he was trying to usurp the Prime Minister, which may not be good for the Tory party, but for the Brexit argument, at least we were hearing the arguments that we heard during the campaign, which have been absent, and I think much of the frustration of Leavers out there is the Remainers are still campaigning every single day. Many of the Leavers, particularly those in the Cabinet, appeared to have shut up shop. Michael from Brentwood, would Boris be a good Prime Minister, Michael?
Hi, Nigel. Hope you're well.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm not sure. I think that is the question. Like, I generally thought Theresa May at the time was the best option. Soon I decided to sort of change my mind on that. So I think it's very hard. It's probably one of those sort of things, like an England manager role. You don't know. It'll make or break you what's sort of there.
Sure.
However, getting there, I think that after the way he sort of, what he did with Gove after the leave, and I'll also point out that I did vote leave myself, and I'm disappointed it's not been a push for a harder Brexit. So,
well, this speech does at least start to put those arguments out there again, Michael, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm pleased about that. I quite like the prominence of Jacob Rees-Mogg. I'd love him to have a ministerial position. I'd actually love him to be Prime Minister. But, because he makes sense. He sort of commands the room's respect, and he actually breaks down on any sort of unfeasible argument from Remain and actually points out hard whole facts and facts. Well,
the one thing I
can't argue with them.
One thing I've picked up, Michael, this morning is that in 48 hours at the Tory party conference, Jacob Rees-Mogg already has 9 speeches booked. So he is in for a very, very big conference. And I think, Michael, I'm beginning to think that what we're going to see at the Tory party conference this year is the referendum rerun all over again, but we won't be involved as members of the public, but it'll be the Tory delegates in that room refighting Brexit. In fact, refighting the fight they've been having for nearly 50 years within that party. And so I think, there may be trouble ahead. Michael, finally, finally, do you think Rees-Mogg is actually ready to be Prime Minister?
Again, very hard to tell, but I actually would say that he's probably the best of the situation.
Okay, fine.
And mainly because he fits the mould right now.
Right, fine. Michael from Brentwood, there we are, a Rees-Mogg supporter. I've no doubt you'll all start tweeting and texting now about Rees-Mogg. Nigel, Boris is on manoeuvres. Tory conference coming up, says Andrew. Nigel, maybe Boris should have thought about the NHS before wasting millions on the cable car, the Garden Bridge, says Donovan in North London. Boris has done us a favour. About time a British politician stood up for us, I get via Twitter. And I'm going to go to Andrew in the Docklands to ask him, does he think Boris has helped the Brexit debate, and what kind of position has he put Theresa May in?
Hello, Nigel. Yes, it wasn't quite what I rang about, but I can have a stab at it.
Go on. What was it you were... Andrew, we're discussing Brexit, Boris, the Prime Minister. What was it you wanted to say?
Well, what I wanted to say was it was about the transitional arrangements, because for my mind, that just favours these huge corporates, which everybody in all sides doesn't seem to like, but no one ever seems to want to do anything about them. That 2 years from the Brexit letter is your time to organise your business, make arrangements so that you are in a fit and fighting position to leave the EU and to carry on in the big wide world after that. And everybody else has made their arrangements. I've made all my arrangements, and these people want another 3 years or something to get. That tells us that they're too bloated, too heavy, too cumbersome to make it in the big wide world, and they should be cut down to size by their competition.
Andrew, I have to say, the fact that the government decided to go for transitional arrangements for a further 3 years up until the next election, for which I guess we'd need to pay nearly 10 billion sterling every year. We'd probably keep free movement during that period as well. We'd be stuck inside the single market and customs union and banned from signing trade deals with any other part of the world. I couldn't believe that the whole cabinet appeared to be going along with it, and that's why I'm pleased. As I say, I don't really care about the health of the Tory party particularly, but it's why I'm pleased for the Brexit debate that Boris has said what he said, because he didn't mention transitional arrangements at all. And you're quite right, Article 50 was the transitional period. That was the 2-year period during which we were supposed to negotiate. Thank you. Hi, Nigel. Boris Johnson is like a lighthouse in the desert. A brilliant idea, but not much else, says Elle from Essex. Well, I tell you what, like Boris, loathe Boris. If you read that article, and as I say, it was designed to be a speech, the one thing Boris is superb at is being a wordsmith, and there was a lot of optimism that came out of that article. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 11:30, and time for the news with Andy Ivey.
A second man has been arrested by detectives investigating Friday's bomb on a tube train at Parsons Green. The 21-year-old was detained in Hounslow in West London overnight after an 18-year-old was held at the port of Dover. The Lib Dem leader, Sir Vince Cable, says Theresa May should sack Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson over his Brexit blueprint, published in a newspaper article yesterday. Sir Vince says it was a direct challenge to the Prime Minister. Research suggests some secondary schools in England are breaking the law on religious studies. Figures show more than a quarter don't offer religious education, despite being told they must. LBC weather, sunshine and locally heavy thundery showers in the southern half of England, highs of 16 degrees.
LBC travel. In Gloucestershire, the northbound M5 remains closed between junction 16 for Aztec West and 14 for Thornbury. That's because of a serious accident. It's causing queues from Cribbs Causeway approaching the closure, and the carriageway is likely to remain closed for most of the day. In London, Romford Road in Stratford is blocked in both directions. That's because of an accident. It's causing queues there. Also in London, Denmark Hill in Camberwell remains blocked southbound because of a police investigation. The A47 in Norfolk is closed in both directions in Kings Lynn at the pullover roundabout. That's because of a serious accident there. And onto public transport, the Hammersmith and City Line and the Circle Line have no service running between Edgware Road and Hammersmith for engineering works. And Southern have no service running between London Bridge to East Croydon and West Croydon. Also, they have a bus replacement service running in West Sussex on various routes and on services to and from Brighton. LBC Travel, I'm Emily Rose.
This is LBC.
Air Canada's having its 80th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with a birthday sale? Right now, take advantage of savings to amazing destinations throughout North America. There's no better time to plan your next adventure. But hurry, book by September 26 for travel on select dates. Visit aircanada.com or call your travel agent.
Admiral, welcome to the show.
My pleasure.
Now, there's been a lot of talk recently about your multi-cover discounts for home and car insurance.
You mean our guaranteed multi-cover discounts?
Yes. Another insurance company saving us money?
Andrew, that's not us. We're different. We cover your home and car insurance on one policy, guaranteeing you a lower Admiral price.
Well, you say that.
Please, go to admiral.com and see the multi-cover discounts for yourself.
Westway. There's no other way.
The all-new Nissan Micra Acenta is a very special car, and Westway's your best way to drive one. On a brand new 67 reg plate with an RRP saving of £2,216. And through Nissan Finance, there's also a £1,300 deposit contribution and low monthly payments. All you'll need is a £499 deposit. So, to find out more,
Google Westway Nissan today.
Subject subject to status. Representative 3.99% APR, not in conjunction with the Nissan Switch scheme.
On a travel pack tailor-made holiday, you get to see the very best of the world. Tour the famous Route 66, the spectacular Canadian Rockies. Experience the magic and history of India, the wilds of Africa, or the exotic Far East. Start your journey with Travel Pack. For amazing prices on your tailor-made holiday of a lifetime, call Travel Pack today on 0208 903 9999 or visit travelpack.com. Atoll Protected.
When you need more space.
Think creatively. What could you use a log cabin for? A studio? A home office? A den for the kids? Creative Living will design and build a log cabin to suit your needs, even taking care of electricity and climate control. See for yourself at our 3 large cabin display villages in Surrey. Find out where at creativelivingcabins.co.uk.
Your own log cabin, handcrafted, the creative living way.
It's Super Weekend at Lidl with up to 50% off selected products. Get a bottle of chili and Pedro Jimenez, only $2.99. 100 grams of deluxe Scottish smoked salmon slices, just $1.49. And a bar of Amazonas or Ecuador dark chocolate, only 79p. Lidl, big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability, NR may vary, selected stores while stocks last.
Name something you'll find at home that has the greatest value.
Heirlooms, Teddy, Lucky Underpants. Oh, love letters.
Sweet, but no. The answer is unlimited fibre broadband from Vodafone. No line rental fees, download and stream as much as you want for 18 months, a one-off £9.95 delivery fee, all for just £20 a month.
Oh.
The UK's lowest priced unlimited fibre broadband by Vodafone, available until the 9th of October. Vodafone, power to you. 18-month agreement subject to credit check and availability. Full terms at vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
To some people, this could sound like a washing machine. But to a British Gas customer, it's the sound of a thank you. That's because we're thanking all of our customers with British Gas rewards, including things like free energy with loyalty days and many more. Join today. Offer subject to availability, conditions apply.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag FarageOnLBC.
Boris writes a 4,000-word piece for the Daily Telegraph, and the Conservative Party are at each other's throats. Amber Rudd today, appearing on the Mar programme this morning, saying she did not want the direction of Brexit to be led by Boris Johnson, and Boris being very clear and saying single market, no, customs union, no. That'll make a mockery, absolute mockery of the referendum result. And he didn't talk about transitional arrangements, meaning perhaps, like our previous caller, Andrew from Docklands, he thinks the transitional arrangement was the 2-year Article 50 period, and not a further 3 years, and perhaps a further 30 billion sterling in contributions. So that's the big UK political story today. But let me tell you about something that's not a story today, which I'm really, really musing on, because over the course of the last month, we've talked, not just on my show, but the media as a whole have talked hugely about North Korea, about repeated missile tests, about some very strong words coming from Donald Trump and from the US administration warning Kim Jong-un that if he goes too far, he may face a military option. And commentators just a week ago, 10 days ago, saying, gosh, could we be on the verge of war? Is this the worst, most serious situation since the Cuban Missile Crisis, over 50 years ago? And yet, 2 days ago, another missile was launched. And yes, once again, it went over Japan, over Japanese territory, for the second time in less than a month. It led to the air raid sirens going off in northern Japan and some of the islands, and people being told to go downstairs to cellars, bunkers, or whatever they may have. It was met by a statement from the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, who said his country's final goal was to establish the equilibrium of real force with the United States and make the US rulers dare not talk about military options. So, once again, he frightens Japan extraordinarily. He's upping the rhetoric. The Americans have put down their red lines. So the situation got a lot more serious over the last 48 hours. And if you go through today's newspapers, do you know what you'll find on it? Nothing. Virtually nothing. It is curious still to me, sometimes, what makes news and what doesn't. Well, one thing for certain is Boris Johnson has made news, and he'd been very quiet for a long, long time, but he's back in business, and along with the other comments, about the single market and everything else, he also rewarmed the 350 million a week, the controversial claim held up by everybody on the other side to have been the great lie of the referendum. And he said, no. We can use most of it to help the National Health Service. And I wonder what June in Lowestoft makes of that. June, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. I think Boris has just reiterated what was said in the referendum campaign. Out is out. That's what we voted for.
Yes.
He's being positive and clear.
Yes.
And 350 million can be used for lots of things. Now, I've got a little bit of a theory. I would use it for fishing, farming and border control. Not particularly all for the NHS, because the man and woman on the street, there's one thing they want. They want a job.
But would you accept,
June? If you've got a job, yes.
June, just before we go on, would you accept that the reason this 350 million figure was so controversial and is constantly held up by the other side as being a lie, that's what they say, is that whilst 350 million a week in theory, should go to the European Union, it doesn't because of the UK rebate, and the real figure is probably nearly 100 million a week less than that. So isn't it a mistake to say you can spend 350 million a week if it's not all physically going to Brussels in the first place?
Well, that's a hard one. I mean, I don't really believe anything I hear and see.
No, it's all right. You're not alone in that.
With all that shinganigan, I mean, if you can't get your books... I mean, every year I could give my books to my accountant. That's all I'll say on that one.
I mean, so, June, either way, are we, on leaving the European Union, is there money free? Money that we don't... money that we give to the European Union that we don't get back in either rebates or any other form? Yes. So you'd like to see it spent on a variety of things. But I would say to you, June, as you come from Lowestoft, I would say to you, we don't need to give any money to the fishing industry. All we need to do in Lowestoft is to give them 200 miles of the North Sea that they can call their own, and not a quota system. And I was out of Ramsgate the other day with a commercial fisherman whose quota of rays and skates that he can catch is so pitiful. He can catch a month's quota in a morning's work when the fish are running. So I would love to see... And I mean, Lowestoft, which was, 25 years, 30 years ago, a thriving, active fishing port, literally destroyed by the Common Fisheries Policy. So I wouldn't give them any money, but I would give them a scrappage of this ridiculous quota system and waters in which to fish. I guess, June... There are arguments, and you were coming on to jobs, there are arguments about border force and everything else. I guess the point about giving a large sum of money to the NHS is that it will honour the commitment that many on the Leave side made.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And obviously, of course, I want money to go to the NHS. That's paramount. But what I'm saying is, Nigel, a lot of the people I see around Lowestoft area, we're deprived, Great Yarmouth, around here, these lads and these girls, they want a job. And if they don't get a job, what they'll do, they'll get 20 quid, go down the road and go buy some pot or something like that and sit there, and then that causes mental health. I just think once you've got a job, you can get rid of mental health, obesity, drugs, gambling. And the strain isn't so much on the NHS and the police force. Years ago, we didn't have all these issues like we have now, because the majority, no matter whether you've got a university degree or you got an O-level or GCA or you got nothing, which I didn't, you got a job. Yeah. And you had a few quid in your back pocket, Nigel, and that is what we want for this.
Well, I guess the argument, June, could be that more money for the NHS could mean more nurses and more doctors, and so that, in a sense, would be jobs. But no, listen, June, great call. June makes the point the money could be used in lots of different ways to benefit lots of different people, and getting youngsters off the streets of Lowestoft is her key priority. Karen on Facebook says, on Boris, I don't trust any politicians. I even have doubts about Mog. Philip says, get May out. The sooner, the better. She might get herself out. If Christopher Hope's analysis, the Telegraph's assistant editor and chief political correspondent who was on this show half an hour ago, if Chris Hope's assessment is right, that what's actually happened here is the Prime Minister said, right, I'm giving this major speech on Friday in Florence. I'm going to stamp my authority on my own government, the Brexit process, and explain to them in Brussels what we will and won't put up with. And then a week before that, Boris Johnson publishes a 4,000-word, I was going to say peace/speech, but maybe I should be calling it a manifesto. Because he doesn't just talk about the European Union, he talks about a whole range of issues through housing and much else. So I do begin to think this is Boris's big pitch for the leadership. And I think as the Tory party conference approaches, I think it could be like watching, frankly, a boxing bout, because already you've got Amber Rudd and Boris Johnson lining up on completely different poles of the argument. And I think the Tory party are in for a really, really tough time coming up this year. Hi, Nigel. The only thing Boris is thinking about is his own ego. We all know he hankers for power, says Steve from Brum. If May said any money saved on Brexit would go to the NHS, everything would turn in her favour. Right, so she's in a hole, and what she does is she agrees with Boris that money should go to the NHS. But what does she do about transitional arrangements when it would appear that nearly all the cabinet, including David Davis, the chief negotiator, have accepted the principle of transitional arrangements? What if she says in Florence this week there will be an up to 3-year transition? And what if Boris comes back on the eve of the conference and says, no, that's not good enough, that'll cost another 30 billion sterling? I think they're headed for real problems. Could it be that Boris has been gagged for the conference and felt compelled to write instead, says Trini? I don't think Boris could ever be gagged. You can't gag Boris. It's impossible. If he wants to say or do something, he's always got a platform. You're listening to the Nigel Farage edition of The Sunday Show on LBC. It's 11:45.
Coming up at 10 on LBC, Majid Nawaz.
Boris Johnson and Michael Gove have rekindled their Brexit partnership in a high-stakes attempt to force Theresa May's hand on European Union talks. Did Bojo regain his mojo?
Majid Nawaz on LBC.
Air Canada's having its 80th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with a birthday sale? Right now, take advantage of savings to amazing destinations throughout North America. There's no better time to plan your next adventure. But hurry, book by September 26 for travel on select dates. Visit aircanada.com or call your travel agent.
You've worked hard your whole life, building up your business and your personal wealth, only for the taxman to take a big chunk after you're gone. Protect your family and loved ones by talking to one of the estate planning specialists at Barnes Rofe. We'll look at your situation and help you to plan ahead and manage your estate for inheritance tax. Don't delay. Visit barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe. Clever accountants for business.
It's a London derby this weekend on the new Sky Sports Premier League channel as Arsenal visit Stamford Bridge. Will Chelsea's new signing Morata prove himself to the home crowd, or will Czech deny his old club an early season win? So what are you waiting for? Upgrade today and watch 126 live games this season on our new channel dedicated to the Premier League. Now for £18 a month. Search New Sky Sports. Cancellation requires 31 days notice. Further terms apply.
Fletcher Day is no ordinary law firm. Finding creative and long-lasting solutions to the legal problems faced by our clients is what we do best. With offices in central London, our team of experienced solicitors take the time to understand your needs. If you're looking for bright and creative lawyers to help you maximise business opportunities or solve complex legal problems, contact Fletcher Day Solicitors at fletcherday.co.uk. Fletcher Day, passionate about law.
To some, this could sound like popcorn in the microwave. But to a British Gas customer, it's the sound of a thank you. That's because we're thanking all of our customers with British Gas rewards, including things like a Sky Store movie and many more. Join today. Offer subject to availability, conditions apply.
Hey,
Hey, Sarah, did you see our street in the Admiral ad last night?
Yeah, we're the inspiration for multi-cover.
Guaranteed discounts on Admiral home and car insurance, don't you know?
Your home and car on one policy. But seriously, it's a lifesaver.
I know. I did my car, Rob's car and the house, and it was multi-cover discounts all round.
Ooh, that deserves a celebration.
Cup of tea, something stronger.
Multi-cover your home and cars at admiral.com.
Hi, Mum. What you doing?
Making fairy cakes.
Can I help?
Of course, sweetheart. Can you weigh each egg to make sure they're between 57 and 60 grams? Then sieve this flour, put that through another sieve, and finally through this really fine sieve. Then count these hundreds and thousands. I like 200 on each.
Actually, I have some homework.
Oh.
People who work at Esso are obsessed with details. Useful if you're a fuel engineer like Deborah. Our new Synergy Supreme Plus unleaded fuel reduces friction to help look after your engine. Esso. Energy lives here. See esso.co.uk for details.
Block management. 2 very simple words. But what do they actually mean? Well, there's budget approval for starters, then service charge invoices, health and safety paperwork, cleaning, gardening, maintenance, inspections, contracts, insurance, emergency call-outs, and a whole lot more besides.
So for complete block management solutions, just remember 3 simple letters. ABC. ABC Estates will take care of all your day-to-day management, leaving you as happy as Larry. See abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
The blonde bombshell Boris Johnson has certainly gone and done it in yesterday's Daily Telegraph with a 4,000-word piece, which looked more like a speech, or many would say even a manifesto. Is he bidding to be the leader? Either way, he's got the Tory cabinet now fighting each other, and Theresa May, I suspect this Friday, fighting for her life. And I've been thinking during the break, Trini sent a text in that we read out before the break. Could it be that Boris has been gagged for the conference and felt compelled to write instead? And I said, Trini, don't be ridiculous. Boris can't be gagged. Well, Boris can't be gagged in the sense that he can, go on the news or write pieces or do whatever he wants. But I begin to wonder whether Trini might have a point. You see, Chris Hope earlier from the Telegraph made a point that there was a meeting that took place last Tuesday in which the Brexit strategy and the May speech in Florence was discussed. Boris wasn't in that meeting. He was doing, as Chris put it, his day job, dealing with the hurricane. The implication from Chris Hope was that Boris felt slighted. And I wonder, Trini, whether he was told that what they wanted at conference was him to speak as Foreign Secretary about Hurricane Irma, about US relations, about North Korea, etc. And I wonder whether he was told, you can't give a Brexit speech because someone else is going to do that. And I wonder why that's whether he's written it in the Telegraph, in the style that he has. Is this the speech Boris wanted to give at conference, but was told didn't fit into the party's agenda? I think, Trini, you may very well be on the money with that. Either way, the challenge is there, and I'm going to ask Paul in York, what on earth does Theresa May do this Friday? Because she's got Boris on one side, she's got Amber Rudd and the Chancellor and all the others on the other side. What does she do, Paul?
Well, first of all, may I say, I wanted Theresa May to succeed.
Yes.
Her maiden speech was very inspirational, and if you like, it was trying to join the country. But she's been promoted beyond her abilities. She's made too many errors. When she was Home Secretary, she promised to reform the police. Never did.
Well, we discussed that, Paul, between 10 and 11 this morning, and we really got some pretty scathing criticism of her police cutbacks.
Well, not only that, I mean, for my money, it would be Boris Johnson, who likes the touch paper, but I'm hoping David Davis is the man who leads the country. Right,
so rather like Geoffrey Howe launching the attack on Margaret Thatcher, it wasn't Geoffrey Howe that was the successor, but do you think, Paul, that what Boris has done will launch a chain of events that will lead to the Prime Minister being removed?
I do. What I would say is I've never met David Davis, and you probably know him better than I, but he honestly said he was in support of the last general election. Now, to me, that were a brilliant move because it kept Nicola Sturgeon quiet from there on in. But can I just go off at a tangent? A little bit of a tangent.
Briefly, Paul, as lots of others want to, but go on.
All right, yeah. Yesterday I went to Harrogate Flower Show.
Yep.
And we had 2 policemen walking round with machine guns. It were packed. So if anything kicked off, there were going to be a lot of, if you like, victims. Whoever joins, whoever's selected, has got to bring this country back, and I believe David Davis is the only man that can do it.
Right, well, I don't know whether David Davis can sort out Harrogate Flower Show, but what we do want is somebody to sort out Brexit, so we know where we're going. Paul, I thank you. Russell says, we need strong leadership in the Tories until Brexit is over. If they play political leadership battles, then the opposition to Brexit will use it as an excuse to get another EU vote. Well, Russell, if the opposition wanted another EU vote, the one thing I'm very sure of after this week is it will not be a vote on us rejoining fully as members of the European Union. I think my friend Jean-Claude Juncker has completely put paid to that. But, it doesn't mean that the Labour Party could finish up at a position of saying we should be part, for example, of the European Economic Area, and that we should be part of a single market and the customs union, and that could happen. Theo says, it's too unfair accusing Bojo of thinking of his political career by writing this article. I sense that may be just a little bit tongue-in-cheek. I wonder what Dan in Leicester makes of Boris's article. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. I thought that it was basically an attempt, a successful attempt for Conservatives to start representing both ends of the argument again.
Okay.
So, as they did during the referendum, so whatever your position is on Brexit, the answer is the Tories. That's the tactic.
If UKIP, or someone like UKIP, at this moment in time, Dan, was in double digits in the polls and rising, I would buy that argument, but it's not the case, is it?
Well, no, because you've kind of been absorbed during the referendum. The Labour Party can't oppose a party that represents all angles. The UKIP has nowhere to go now because they're widely represented in the Conservative Party. The only real opposition are the Liberal Democrats, and they don't have any traction whatsoever currently. So the Tories, they play that card really well. Since Cameron announced the referendum, the Tories have kind of had to take this stance of representing all angles, and I think that's what Boris.
All right. So Dan, you think this is the Tory party being the big tent?
Yeah, exactly. It's that no one's talking about anything except which version of the Tory party is going to be victorious.
And do you think then, given that relations between Boris Johnson and Theresa May, I mean, do you think there'll be sort of tea at Chequers this afternoon between the two of them?
Well, Theresa's a trier, obviously. Boris, being born in the rarefied atmosphere he was born in, everything's a game. So he can't lose.
Dan, you may be right. You may be right. There may be something incredibly clever that is going on here, and the Tory party getting support from different sides of the argument. You may be right. But generally, in politics, things happen for baser reasons, and personal slights, insults, ambitions generally are what dominate the political agenda more than plans and highfalutin ideas. Dan, you may be right, I doubt it, but you may well be right, and you're the second caller today. We had Matthew from Heathrow earlier making much the same point. I wonder what Barry in Chingford makes of it.
Well, I think I can't understand this import-export nonsense. I mean, the fact that we're in the EU means that when we export stuff, we don't charge VAT. Is that correct?
No. This is about tariffs, Barry. Tariff is...
Okay, or tariffs then.
Tariffs... I mean, the argument for it, ever since the common market, 44 years ago, is that you can do business with your next-door neighbours in Europe without anyone having to pay tariffs.
Exactly. But what they do, they pay VAT.
Yeah.
And that's taken care of the tariff. I can remember purchase tax.
Sure.
Where you simply pay the purchase tax. That was it. But the VAT, when we export to the EU, providing we can show the VAT number of the people that we're exporting to, we don't charge them VAT. So our country gets nothing out of my exports into the EU.
Well,
it's the EU that charge the VAT, that gives them their revenue.
Barry, what we get...
We pay duty and tariffs.
Yeah, but Barry, don't forget, we import a lot more than we export with the European Union.
That's good, because we make money. Everything we import from the EU, we charge VAT on, and that goes into the coffers of the government.
Okay, Barry, all right, I understand that, but I don't think it's central to this argument. Look, let me ask you, do you think Theresa May's going to survive till Christmas?
I hope not.
You hope not, right. And were you a Leaver or a Remainer, Barry?
A Leaver.
You were a Leaver, right. So, but she's taken the Leave position, but she's obviously not impressed you. So, is this Boris's big pitch to be the PM?
I love Boris, you or Hogg. Mog, is it? Mog,
yes, Mog.
You, the BPM, believe me.
Great.
The thing is, you guys have got charisma, and it's all about selling, and you're liven the bloody country up.
Barry from Chingford, we'll have to end it there. Very good, very, very amusing. Nigel, what are the Tory party doing, jetting off to Florence for their conference? What a waste of money. I thought we were scared. And no, the Tory party are not having their conference in Florence. The Prime Minister is giving a speech this week on Friday in Florence. I thought Boris was good until I saw his cycling scheme in London. Questionable judgment, says Neil. Yeah, well, certainly, if you go along Lower Thames Street, you can't move. We will see what happens. One thing for certain, the pressure now is absolutely heaped on Theresa May. What happens in Florence on Friday really matters. You've been listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'm back tomorrow evening from 7, coming up at 3, and new to the LBC schedule is Alex Salmond, but up next, it's Majid Nawaz.
Thank you, Nigel. Coming up, according to latest research, more than a quarter of England's secondary schools do not offer religious education, despite the law saying they must. Should schools be teaching religion? And if so, how? Before that, Aung San Suu Kyi was supposed to address the world from the podium of the UN